The year is 1995. I'm sitting in my grandparents' living room in Lower Manhattan, across the street from the World Trade. I watch old Jetsons reruns, complete with their utopian view of the future. The year is 1999. I watch Discovery Channel specials that imagine the future. They predict that in the year 2015, we'll have flying ambulances and advanced healthcare. The year is 2020. I have not left my house. I have not crossed the threshold of my front door in over 45 days. I find myself clinging to games not only for work, but for an escape. I miss the utopian view of the future that we've seemingly lost. I longed for an adventure to explore vast worlds, things that are especially welcome in a world where isolation means survival. And so I looked for hope in the last game I'd ever thought to, Mass Effect Andromeda. I'll address this right off the bat. While I believe the issues with the game around launch were overblown, no, it wasn't great. Thankfully, modding let me right a lot of its wrongs. I managed to balance combat and mobility to be much more pleasing. I found fixes for odd character designs and textures, and even some great character creation options. So just know that my experience this time around was very different from what we saw at Andromeda's initial release, and I'll tell you how to do the same. For those of you who've forgotten, and many wouldn't blame you, Mass Effect Andromeda drops you into the space boots of a Pathfinder, charged with finding and terraforming humanity's next home. After a 634-year journey in cryostasis, humanity finds itself in the grips of a dark energy storm that threatens the entire mission. That proves only to be the beginning of their problems, as an enemy known as the Ket take a particular interest in the Pathfinder, and an ancient race of aliens has left a string of mysteries across the Andromeda galaxy. If you're going to survive, you and your band of alien buddies will have to figure out how to awaken ancient tech that can terraform Andromeda's various planets. Revisiting this story struck a particularly different chord with me this time around. Throughout the Arc Hyperion and even the Nexus, you can see grand monuments to humanity and the Alliance races. There's an air of pride for how far our species has come and how much further we're about to go. Playing this during the first year of a new decade, one that I felt held a lot of personal promise, only to encounter some fresh challenge daily, felt similar. That uncertainty, almost desperation, felt palpable in a new way, one that had admittedly been lost on me previously. In fact, between the monotony of working from home, binge-watching the latest shows, and squeezing in a workout, I found myself wanting to jump back into Andromeda more and more. Even after completing main story missions on Andromeda's various planets, you can make planets more stable, more viable for a human outpost. You can even return to make a few limited choices that affect their ultimate growth, address local concerns, and complete side quests. I found myself clinging to the expansion of those outposts. Mass Effect Andromeda became my escape in that way. It allowed me to become this spacefaring adventurer, righting wrongs and helping people at a time that I felt somewhat powerless in real life. Whereas previous Mass Effect games provided straightforward quests, Andromeda provides opportunities for building success. Those additional tasks I mentioned, helping out your settlements and serving the needs of settlers, could lead to yet larger side quests down the line. It offers the pleasure of incremental successes as well as more conventional quests. And I have to tell you that during a time where we can't do much, that incremental success becomes much more compelling. Just look at Animal Crossing, a game built entirely on incremental goals. It felt much more satisfying this time around to not only be adventuring, taking down hostile alien races, and retaking that dream of making a new home in Andromeda, but building that futuristic utopia as well. Another big reason for my newfound enjoyment in this underdog of a sci-fi adventure is modding. I had a shockingly easy time with absolutely zero crashes. Frosty Mod Manager, the tool that makes it all happen, even gives you a warning if a mod was created for an older version of the game. And even then, I found no issues with the older mods that I tried. Speaking of which, a few of my favorite mods help deal with some of the issues that we saw at launch, namely character design choices and facial animations. Mods like Peebee Tweak, No Mask made a few adjustments that I found to be an improvement, as well as Addison Tweak, which improves her textures to take the emphasis off some of the weaker parts of her facial animations. Young Sloane is another facial mod that returns a character to her pre-release glory. I point those out specifically because they were characters that many complained about around release. However, the most impactful mods in my load order run more than skin deep. Balanced Weapons manages to make various weapons a bit more viable, especially later on in the story, and increase weapon damage overall, making combat much snappier. Better Squad, a mod by the same creator, buffs the passive bonuses of all squad mates, allowing them to stay in the fight a bit longer. Suddenly, my squad mates felt more capable and deadly, and less like I was babysitting them. Hypermobility is another absolute must-have for PC players, as it makes your character more reactive by cutting unnecessary animations and extra frames, like when rapidly changing direction. It also increases sprint speed, rocket jump height, and directional thruster capability, making you much more mobile across the field. This greatly altered my gameplay, as I would normally stick to cover-based shooting. The mod had me zooming about the field, adding verticality to my tactics. And finally, MEA Fix Pack, which is a salve for many in-game woes that range from minor bugs like NPC glitches to glitched quests and crafting imbalances. But can mods actually salvage such a controversially received game? I have to admit, I'm quite biased. I adore the Mass Effect universe, and Mass Effect 2 is quite possibly my favorite game of all time, all things considered. I don't want to hate another game in the same universe, and I was hoping I'd find something new this time around, that my opinions would change given time, space, and yes, those trusty mods. While many compared Mass Effect Andromeda to Mass Effect 3, I found myself comparing it to the first Mass Effect. It's the beginning of a new journey with new companions in a completely different corner of the universe. I wanted to feel thrust into the unknown the way I did in the beginning of Mass Effect. To have this sense that just beyond the thin metal walls of my ship, there's an entire galaxy of adventure just waiting for me. But after a while, I managed to push that frame of comparison out of my mind and enjoy the game before me. I found it refreshing to no longer be playing as Commander Shepard, as by the third game I had this sense that whatever I chose would be right. Or I could just make it right somehow later on. I'm Commander Shepard after all. Playing a Pathfinder, an unproven protagonist, made me uncertain. It made me rethink my choices a dozen times, the way I had when I first dealt with the Rachni Queen as a fresh Spectre. I found myself enjoying getting to know my crew the way I had before I ever stopped the Reapers alongside the likes of Garrus and Liara. I managed to enjoy meeting each new character and gave them a fair shake by not comparing them to my previous crew. In short, I found the Mass Effect adventure that had been obscured behind animation scandals, online outrage, and developer abuse. Everything I enjoy about the Mass Effect universe, the grand scale and the minor details, are in Andromeda. The vanilla version of the game just made them harder to find, or rather, harder to focus on. Small details still manage to create a charming space adventure, like finding Plants vs. Zombies plushies in your crewmate's bunk, reading the ship's bulletin board for funny crew interactions, and even organizing some much-needed R&R for everyone. And making larger decisions like forging an alliance based on trust, understanding, and a common goal was refreshing as someone who'd like to see more of that in real life, especially right now. I also fell in love with the worlds I was exploring, like Aya, the beautiful homeland of the Angara. This game isn't as lacking in depth and detail as I thought after my first playthrough, which was admittedly rushed so that I could figure out the initial hype and controversy for myself. I will say, however, that many of the familiar and beloved aspects from Mass Effect games past are buried under new and frustrating design decisions or quest structures. And that feeling isn't helped by an ever-growing sense that the team aspired for more but had to abruptly ship a game, which only becomes more prevalent as you near the game's end. So yes, Mass Effect Andromeda is pretty good, with the caveat that heavily modding it helps. I gave it a second chance, and if your computer can run it, maybe you should too. While I don't condone unfinished games being rushed out before they're truly ready, I don't see a need to continue hating on games that have ultimately been revitalized by a loving mod community. So give it a try. You might just find something to love among Andromeda's stars.